We're continuing our sermon series on Ecclesiastes today. And so far, what we've learned is that life is absurd. And because we all end up the way we began, with nothing. We make no profit on this life. But we've also learned that we can enjoy life, even in seasons that are not at all enjoyable. When we receive everything we have, however temporary it is, as a gift from God. We cannot hold on to a beautiful sunset. However, we can appreciate it and take joy in it. We learned that there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. And we can see that life is beautiful in its contrasts. The embracing and the refraining, the speaking and the silence, weeping and laughing, mourning and dancing. Accepting the fact that we will die, even though we will not make a permanent impact on this world, helps us to see God's good gifts right in front of us all the time, every day of our lives, eating and drinking and taking satisfaction in our own work. But then there was a striking moment when the teacher let us know that death isn't quite the final word. We also saw in chapter 3 that there will be judgment. God will bring into judgment both the righteous and the wicked. For there will be a time for every activity, a time to judge every deed. What's past is past. But what is past is not forgotten by God. And because He is in charge and He lives forever, He's eternal, one day all will be well. Every single thing that happens will have its day in court. And God's judgment means justice. Then the teacher concludes chapter 3 with, I also said to myself, as for humans, God tests them, so that they may see that they are like the animals. Surely the fate of human beings is like that of the animals. The same fate awaits them both. As one dies, so dies the other. All have the same breath. Humans have no advantage over animals. Everything is meaningless. All go to the same place. All come from dust, and to dust they return. The teacher believes God will provide justice, but what does that mean in our lives now? We will still die just like the animals. So, our question for the day, where am I going? Where am I going in my life? And this is a question that consumes us. We don't even realize it, but we ask and answer this question a million times a day in one way or another. It shows up in thoughts like, how am I doing today? What could I do that would make me feel better? What am I going to do after I finish what I'm doing now? Or even, a little more profoundly, why am I working so hard? What am I living for? We fill our thoughts with ourselves and constantly work out how to navigate our lives in a way that will give us more meaning, more happiness, and more satisfaction. But the teacher says, this is the source of our pain. And in chapter 4, he gives us a new question to ask. I'll give you a hint. It's, how are we doing? He, as usual, this teacher, starts with what's wrong before getting to what we can do about it, if there's anything we can do about it. So he says, again I looked and saw all the oppression that was taking place under the sun. I saw the tears of the oppressed, and they have no comforter. Power was on the sides of their oppressors, and they have no comforter. And I declared that the dead, who had already died, are happier than the living. But better than both is the one who has never been born, who has not seen the evil that is done under the sun. Wow. So looking around, the teacher sees more than just that bad things happen to us before we die. It's worse than that. This world is full of outrageous oppression, love of self, and hatred of others. And it's so horrible that he believes it's better to be dead than to look on all of it. In fact, best of all, never to have existed at all. The teacher isn't exaggerating. Our world is full of horror, from child abusers to serial killers, from the destruction of war to sex slavery, from famine in Africa to war in Ukraine. Look at the news, if you can stand it. People do awful things to each other. The teacher says that he can't look at it any longer. He'd prefer to be dead. Well, moving on. He changes focus, but what he still sees is still bad. I saw that all toil and all achievement spring from one person's envy of another. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Fools fold their hands and ruin themselves. Better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and a chasing after the wind. Envy, that's one of the 7 deadly sins, right? Have you ever looked around and thought, why does she have that and I don't? Or have you ever seen a friend mess up and felt a little bit better about yourself? Dragging other people down, taking what they have, seems to build us up. That's a big reason why we all love gossip. Envy is how we hate our neighbor. Laziness, fools fold their hands. Laziness is another way to hate our neighbor. If you don't do any work, then you'll have nothing either for yourself or for your neighbor. The other extreme, frantic busyness, 2 handfuls with toil, is just chasing after the wind. It can never be enough. There's a middle way, right there in the middle of this passage. It says, 1 handful with tranquility. Well, there's a little bit of hope. That is, peace and rest are more important than wealth and success. Contentment seems to be the key. But the teacher is not done looking around. Again, I saw something meaningless under the sun. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil. Yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. For whom am I toiling, he asked, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? This too is meaningless, a miserable business. So here we have another observation about how we relate to each other. Here's a man who has no children, no family, no friends. All he has is his work and his wealth. He has everything except enjoyment. Remember, it's not money that is the root of all kinds of evil. It's the love of money. And Ecclesiastes has a powerful solution here. Other people. Chop out the root. Spend your money on others. Give it away. Do it regularly, gladly, generously. And you may discover joy and find yourself less alone. Self-centered striving isolates us and it destroys us. When we love our neighbors rather than envy them, we benefit. Of course, loving our neighbors can also bring sacrifice and grief and vulnerability and disappointment, but it opens the opportunity for real joy. The teacher goes on, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, 2 lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can 1 keep warm alone? Though 1 may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. This is a very poetic way of saying that life lived in community is better for everyone. Here's our answer. The question that we continually ask ourselves would better be, how are we doing? Less focus on keeping up with the Joneses and more focus on how we can help the Joneses. That's the secret of life. It's the path to happiness. Maybe you don't have as much as you'd like, but remember, each of us have more than we deserve. If you can live life in such a way that the person or people beside you, your friend, your spouse, your children, your brother or sister, your neighbor, all of those people that God has put in your path, if they are your concern, your waking concern, your dominant focus, then you will likely find happiness. If you fall asleep at night full of questions about what you can do, how you might help and serve someone else, wondering how you can be a certain kind of person for them, then I believe you will find contentment that nothing else can match. We were not made to carry the burden of life alone. That's what the teacher is teaching us. He looked at the world through his very cynical eyes and saw oppression, and competition, and loneliness, and endless striving. And underneath all of it is the same problem. We tend to be focused on ourselves. How am I doing? What do I have? How do I compare? What do I still need? And the more life revolves around ourselves, the smaller it becomes. The teacher is trying to rescue us from the misery of isolation. He says 2 are better than 1. Not because relationships are always easy, not because people never disappoint us, but because human beings were never meant to carry life alone. The person obsessed with success eventually discovers that achievement can't pick you up when you fall. Money can't sit beside your hospital bed. Status can't grieve with you, and envy can't love you. Companionship is the answer to that. Love can. Shared burdens can. So the path to wisdom, and this is wisdom literature, Ecclesiastes, the path to wisdom is not becoming more self-sufficient. It's learning how to belong to one another. And strangely enough, when we stop asking, am I finally getting enough from life? And start asking, how can I love the people God has put beside me? We may discover the kind of contentment we were chasing all along. And that's the wisdom of Ecclesiastes. Amen.